Day 4 of the Pog Legends Streamer Chess Tournament is starting off here with a game between Pox and Napo Ellis. Take a look at this starting position, by the way. E4 and A5, Napo Ellis getting ambitious, pushing a flank pawn here, and Pox going for knight c3. Pox, a recurring competitor from last year's tournament, got in the quarterfinals and is looking to win it this time around. Napo, a newcomer, was a little bit nervous about his chess skills going into this event, and you can see a little bit shaky with his openings here, moving a couple unusual pawns that you don't usually see being pushed out super early on. Pox playing a little bit more principled, putting pieces in the center, and actually getting 2 pawns here in the center. Very nice control from Pox, already off to a good start, whereas Napo playing a bit peculiarly. We have the knight kind of here on the edge of the board. Things aren't looking as active for him so far, and he's got to catch up really over here, especially on the king side with his development. We have both the bishops out from Pox, and look at this, b6 and then b5 from Napo Ellis, challenging Pox's center. And here, Pox actually, even with better opening ideas, better principles, more experience, has a bit of trouble, doesn't really see these backwards bishop moves and just takes this pawn and blunders a piece early. Napo has one of his biggest advantages already of this entire set so far after he picks up a full bishop, but it's going to be challenging for him. It's going to be challenging because look at how much more space Pox has in this position. Pox is just going to build this nice center. This time he is going to understand that he needs to retreat his knight and is going to try and develop normally from here. Napo playing g6, you would think maybe is trying to go for some bishop g7, line that up. Nope. G6, the idea here was to play f5 and challenge Pox's center this way. A bit ambitious, seeing as you're making your king a little bit weaker over here. And again, you're lacking in piece development. So you have to be very careful about opening the position up when it's a lot easier for Pox to castle and a lot harder for Napo to do so. Pox castles and ignores the pawn in the center. The position is actually still pretty close to equal, even though Napo's up a piece because of Pox's huge lead in development. And now h5, and oh my god, look at these pawns. This is scary. We don't want to be doing this if you're playing as black here. You don't want to keep pushing these pawns forward. You want to get more pieces into this game, right? But d5, okay, Pox taking more space in the center. Napo backs off, but oh no, backed off from the pawn the wrong way. You had to go bishop b7 here. And now, unfortunately for Napo, and fortunately for Pox, based on who you're rooting for, Pox is picking up a piece, knight to b5. Now Pox has earned his bishop back, and he's up 2 pawns, and Pox has a completely winning position. His king is safer, he has more space. This is looking pretty good. We have g5. Napo blundering yet another pawn and is potentially going to be in shambles, or he needs to come up with something quickly to fix his position, get his pieces coordinated and consolidate, and try to avoid trading pieces. So he attacked the knight on b5. Pox goes here, but this is a huge mistake. You see the evaluation notices right away. There's now this move, something like queen b6 check will actually pick up the knight, and Napo will be able to get a full piece back here and catch back up to Pox. Napo could also even try to just play something like queen c7, and the knight also just has no real escape squares. Obviously, you can come defend the knight and such, but it's going to make things a little more challenging for Pox. Napo doesn't see these ideas, but he does, to his credit, take a free pawn on b2. And here, Pox gets a little nervous. Pox probably also needs to spend a little more time on his moves. It is move 15, and a principal chess player, Pox does have a lot of experience. Playing pretty quickly here, and in 1 second, plays the move knight c6. I don't know if Pox was scared about something with the knight being here on a7, if maybe he thought it was going to get trapped, or he didn't know what to do maybe in his position, but he goes knight c6 in a second, and Napo takes the knight. Napo has a full piece on Pox. The issue is, though, again, Pox has gobbled a bunch of Napo's pawns, so even though he's down a piece, Pox is now up 3 pawns for the piece and just has a way better position. Pox's king is safer. Now, the computer still argues that because white has a lot of material, as long as he can get it out fast and quickly enough and still castle, then he can be totally fine here. But can Napo do that? Can he accomplish that? These players are not super strong. They don't always understand how to get all their pieces active and into the game. And can that happen? Well, Napo just retreats the knight for I have no clue why. Maybe trying to target this c6 pawn, although the c6 pawn isn't really threatening anything yet. Could have also gone for a queen trade if he really wanted to, and then maybe gobbled a pawn here. But we have a retreat with the knight. Pox takes another pawn, but that was a mistake. Pox actually had a somewhat better line with something like trading the queens, checking and throwing away the pawn, and like getting the bishop very active. There's like some more enginey lines here that are a little bit challenging to find, but instead just takes the pawn. And that is a free pawn. Pox just gets another pawn. Position's only equal, though, if Napo either trades queens or takes this pawn back. So Napo takes the pawn back. Both these players are actually finding some reasonable moves, and they're not blundering anything crazy. The material is actually equal here because white's just up so many pawns, and now the queens do trade. The queens do trade, and this is one of the last times, though, the position is equal, because now we have a check. Black is still safe here on c7, rook b1, and Napo probably needs to take this rook and trade rooks here. There's also a couple other moves like bishop g7, activating another piece and defending your rook, which I don't dislike either, but Napo gets greedy and gobbles a pawn, and now it gives Pax this beautiful move. Knight c3 attacks the rook, and the rook's actually trapped. If something like knight c3, rook can't go anywhere. This is covered by the other rook, this is covered by the knight, and if rook a3, there is this check and a fork, and white's just completely winning here. So you actually have to give up the rook in some way, shape, or form. But Pax doesn't find this idea. Pax instead goes knight d4, which is still nice, maybe some sort of a trade consideration. This could be good for black, though. Black might be able to develop some pieces with tempo, but Napo doesn't do that. And this is where Napo's position starts to crumble after taking on c2, not realizing that the knight was not only attacking this knight, but also attacking this pawn. And if knight does take knight, this is an equal exchange, but this is not. And Pax is up a full rook now, and this will be very hard for Napo to crawl back from. Napo brings the knight here, but you don't want to trade pieces when you're down material. Napo does just that and also loses a pawn. Maybe could try to get tricky here and attack this, and actually Napo does play a move like this. But Pax isn't falling for this. Pax is not going for the forced en passant here and losing a rook, because that would be not very good for white. Instead, very calm, cool, and collected, Pax checks what black's king, which slides over. We have another check and a ladder mate on the edge of the board. Pax is picking up a point here and moving on to the next phase of the tournament. This was the third game in the match between these two, Napo unfortunately losing all three. And then another game we saw here in this match was Slip Kit, which is Silvis versus Sienna Maria. Both of these two first-time competitors in this tournament, although Silvius, which I'm going to refer to as Slip, has played chess in the past when he was younger, and Sienna has not played much chess at all, so it's going to be a lot less experience than Slip going into this game. And you'll see right here, a pretty tough first move from white with g4. Slip doesn't make the most accurate first move himself, where g5 is now possible, but Sienna doesn't necessarily take advantage of that and is already making her king very weak right here in the opening. Slip's going to play a little more principally with moving a pawn up in the center, moving the two knights out, and even though he moves a flank pawn, his position already looks much better than Sienna's position here, who's playing white. Sienna moving her knight to the edge of the board, Slip putting the knight in the center, and Sienna already giving up actually a pawn here on the side of the board, that weak g4 pawn that you really don't want to move. You definitely don't want to move your pawn to g4. If you're a beginner, I would avoid moving these two pawns up. At the very least, moving them up 2 squares. You could maybe move them up 1 square to put your bishop on these diagonals. Slips up a pawn early. Slip pushes his pawn to d5 in the center. Could be playing a little more accurately, but Sienna's not playing very principled, and Slip could definitely take advantage of that. In fact, here, Slip can actually take this pawn. Slip can take because if it takes... this is just a free rook for black, so you have to be very careful with white attacking on that side of the board. Slip doesn't see that. Instead, it pushes in the center, and Sienna hangs her knight. So Slip can actually just take on c3, and he does. Slip just up a full piece. Clean piece out of the opening. And this is going to be very hard for Sienna to crawl back from already down a piece this early, and her position's looking rough. Her king and queen are still in the center. Her bishops can't move, or they don't have vision across the center of the board. And we take the pawn back, but... there's going to be a queen trade, and Sienna initiates this queen trade. And the queen trade's not good for Sienna because Sienna is down material and probably wants to keep pieces on the board. Fortunately for her, there is this very nice move here. Knight takes f7, winning back maybe in exchange, which could be huge for her. But Sienna doesn't see that. She takes the pawn. Instead, Slip moves back, defending his f-pawn, and now that option no longer is available to her. Sienna does still have some game, though. She can get her bishops activated very quickly to apply some pressure, put her rooks maybe on the open files, and still try to play some chess here. And unfortunately, she does play knight f7, but she plays it a move too late after Slip already moved into defend, which maybe she didn't realize, and now Slip's just up 2 full knights, and this is going to be pretty devastating for Sienna. Now she's down 2 pieces in this position, and she's going to slowly start slipping down on time a little bit too. Now, what's crazy is Slip actually blunders his knight. He didn't realize the bishop was covering this square, and she takes, and not only that, but Slip plays another very quick move. He spends only maybe 14 or so seconds on this move and blunders a second knight out of nowhere, and Sienna has the opportunity from a completely lost position to make this game equal again, but she misses the second knight. Not only does she miss the second knight, but she loses her bishop. She loses this bishop in the center, so now she's down 2 pieces again, and now she loses another bishop for the knight. She is down 2 pieces, and again, she's just gotta take advantage of these opportunities when they come up here. to win these pieces, and now Slip just has 2 full bishops. Not only that, but Sienna's pawns are looking very weak. This pawn will be able to be captured. This pawn's then weak. She's got some isolated pawns here. Slip's pawns are nicely being guarded by the king here. This pawn is a weakness. There's just so many weaknesses in Sienna's position, and Slip's going to come in and gobble up. He's going to come in and gobble up. He took the A pawn, he took the C pawn, he took the F pawn, and they're slowly flying off the board. Now Sienna has 2 bishops and 2 pawns up on white here. So what can Sienna do? Can she try and crawl back into this game? King F2, okay, activating her king potentially, which also activates the rook, theoretically. But Slip's very active. Slip's very active. He's making problems in the position. He's attacking Sienna's weaknesses, and Sienna, to her credit, is trying to attack. She's trying to put pressure on Slip's king, but unfortunately, she needs to see which squares are covered by her opponent's pieces. And although she is trying to check, even if the bishop wasn't here, this would be a little bit of a, maybe kind of a not so impressive check because the king can just move and counterattack the rook. But the bishop covers, Slip sees it, and Slip's just up material. Slip's not only up material, but he's up time. Look at the time difference. Sienna, less than half of Slip's time here, is going to struggle towards this endgame with material and with time. Slip's going to pick up another pawn, and Sienna's maybe going to try to be tricky with the rook and try to maybe get in somewhere, but with one singular rook, it's going to be very hard. And Slip defends his rook on h4. He's going to push a few pawns. He's going to have a slow little positional improvement, getting his bishop, up, getting his pieces all coordinated and defended, trying to push some pieces up the board. Everything is defended in his position, which is nice. This rook probably wants a chance to get into the game. Slip noticeably has had a tough time with these endgames. He has a tough time checkmating his opponents. He has a tough time finding the path to victory, even once he's up a significant amount of material. So he's struggling a bit. You'll notice he's throwing some checks out here. He's just walking his king up. He could easily promote to a second pawn here. He could easily checkmate a little bit faster. He's trying to just give a bunch of different checks here on Sienna's king, and Sienna has nothing to do. I mean, her rook is here. She still has a rook on the board, so there's no stalemating possibilities, thankfully for Slip. But look at the time. I mean, we have a check here and another check with the rook, and in this position, Slip doesn't win by checkmate, but he does win on time and is going to move on to the next phase of the tournament. Congratulations to Slipkit, and he does win it in 3 games. This was game number 3 of this set, and I do have one more game here for you, the final, and we've saved the most exciting for last. Dark Gamma versus DJ Fira here, my friends. So between the 2 players here, this game had 10 inaccuracies, 4 mistakes, 7 misses, and 6 blunders. This is gonna be something. So DJ Fira playing white, pawn to d4 and pawn to d5 from Dark Gamma. And these are going to be the most normal moves we're going to see in this entire game because now we have f3. And f3 is not actually a terrible move. Maybe something like f3 and d4. You just have to be careful again about your king on this diagonal. Knight c6. Okay. e3, defending the pawn in the center. Good vision from DJ Fira. And now black striking in the center. Finding what's an amazing move, honestly, attacking the pawn in the center. Again, which is a little bit tough to defend. You could play something like knight e2, but then maybe black can push even further into the center. If you don't take, if you take, then you lose a center pawn, and maybe black will recapture here. And again, there's this check that may be happening in the future. So black's position already looking really good. Fira plays here. This theoretically puts pressure on black's pawn in the center, but black's pawn in the center is defended by the queen. Now this pawn again does have 2 defenders, so technically everything's kind of defended here. And now Gamma does decide to take. Reasonable move. Now all DJ Fira needs to do is just take this pawn back, and it's a pretty symmetrical position other than the F pawn. But instead she blunders her knight, and in one singular move here on move 5, DJ Fira is already losing after Dark Gamma takes the knight, or doesn't. Dark Gamma says, you know what? You can have that pawn. I didn't want to take back with the queen anyways. I'm just going to mimic your F pawn here. And again, we're getting back closer to just a symmetrical position. And you can save your knight now. You can play knight back here. You can also defend with your E pawn. But DJ Fira says, no, I insist. Please take my knight. I'm just going to grab your pawn in the center. And Gamma says, oh, you're blundering your knight? I could blunder my knight too. Knight d4, and now both knights are able to be captured by each opposing queen. And look at this evaluation bar having an aneurysm over here as DJ Fira decides not to take black's knight, but instead play g4. And now g4 is losing for white because black just takes the knight in the center. But Gamma doesn't take the knight either. Gamma plays bishop d7, not only not taking the knight, but also now his queen is not putting pressure on white's knight anymore. Now DJ Fira does notice Gamma's knight is loose on d4, But instead of taking it with the queen, she attacks it with the pawn, making an obvious instigation against this knight, to which Gamma says, oh, you're now attacking my knight? Okay, I'll move my knight back. And now both players' knights are safe and the position is back to equal again. Is this game even real? Now at this point, DJ Fira can of course play any sort of natural developing moves, can move the bishop out somewhere, or even this bishop, the knight, but instead, unfortunately, DJ Fira, maybe fearing for her knight in the center, takes this pawn and just gives up a knight again. Really wants Gamma to take the knight, so Gamma takes it. Gamma takes it, now a couple more moves are made, and Gamma's just playing up a piece. We have a couple developing moves. Gamma moves the bishop out, Fira moves the knight out. We have bishop to f4, but oh, bishop f4 loses a bishop. This is actually a free bishop, but Gamma is scared for his queen's safety. Gamma says, oh, bishop is attacking my queen. I need to move my queen out of the way, which misses out on a chance for a free bishop. But this is good news for Fira. Good news for Fira because she's down a piece and she needs to be very careful about her position moving forward. Probably needs to focus on getting her king to safety. Gamma needs to focus on getting his king to safety. But the players do anything but. And instead we have moves like b3 and now king e7. Not long castles for whatever reason, but moving the king up to be an active participant in this game, defending some pieces in the position and controlling some squares. And just saying, I don't care if my king's in the center. That's okay. Your king's in the center, my king's in the center. We're going to have a little bit party, play a delayed bong cloud here and keep going. And now things start to go off the deep end here. Starting with a great move, a4, which is one of the best moves that DJ Fira could have played in this position. I can't explain this move to you at all, but her idea here, after I guess black played bishop d6, is bishop b5. Bishop b5, though, is unfortunately a mistake because the pawns are overextended and just too weak. There is takes with check, putting pressure on so much stuff in white's position. We can maybe try to trade more pieces again. Black is just up a piece in this position. Fira's not doing too well. But instead of this, queen b6 is immediately a mistake because you can trade off these bishops and afterwards black's king is in such a weak position in the middle of the board with white's pieces being super active. So for example, takes, and then long castles. If the king goes back, you're walking into more checks. Even if the king walks forward, which is the top engine move, your king is stuck in the middle of the board here. It's very weak. White can get their pieces into the game very easily and just harass black's king and also target all these pawns. It's completely winning for white because black just can't get the rest of their pieces into the game. And what's crazy is DJ Fira finds this idea. She takes on d6, trades off the queens, and now needs to either castle or play rook d1 here. She does play rook d1, not as good as castling because the king is a little safer over here. But either way, king back, and now you need to take with the rook here. You need to take with the rook to maintain the advantage. She does take the bishop though. She does win a piece. It's not as strong, but now material's looking way closer to equal and it's +1 for white. White has just an extra pawn. In this situation, the rook is not instigating, infiltrating, and the king is not as maybe safe on c1. And you know, now black maybe has the chance to get pieces into the game a little bit faster. So okay, black brings the knight back, attacking the bishop. DJ Fira sees her bishop's in danger. Cool. Black continues to attack the bishop, but here DJ Fira takes a step in the wrong direction with c4. And unfortunately, her bishop was being attacked and now it's just trapped too, so Gamma has the opportunity to just collect a free piece, and he does. And now Gamma's back up a piece again. Fira takes the pawn back, and to be fair, she has a very nice majority of pawns on this side of the board against black's single pawn. So she can take advantage of that and eventually maybe march these pawns up the board and make a passer. It could help her quite a bit, especially with black's lack of development on this side of the board and lack of pawns on this side of the board. So, rook a5. Now she does castle. Oh my gosh, this might have been the first castle of the entire match. This is game like 2 or 3 in this match, and she castles, which is fantastic. Now, look at this coming. And the king is running out of squares. Black's king is just kind of marooned in the center of the board, and this rook is trapped, and none of these pieces are participating in the game. Fira is down material, but you can see the evaluation 0-0-0 because her king is way safer, and her pieces are way more active. So now g6. I really have no idea what g6 does. If anything, it takes away a developing square from this knight potentially. Maybe now the king has a little bit more of a getaway path, but okay. Knight to the center. DJ Fira getting her knight active. Now she has some knight jumps. Maybe knight d5 in the future. Black decides, okay, I made this little cave for my king. I'm going to walk over there. And DJ Fira says, no, I'm going to attack you right now. You're not going to escape from me. But unfortunately, she blunders her rook. Not only does she blunder her rook, but it's actually one of the only legal moves here for black. Black can either go here or here. And if you're deciding between the two, should I just move my king out of the way or take the rook, it's a little bit easier to find taking the rook. And Gamma is now up 2 pieces. Now, it doesn't matter that Gamma's pieces are not developed as much because Gamma just has too much material in this position. Now, although Gamma has more material in the position, take a look at the time. 140 for Gamma, 230 for Fira. These players have been using a lot of time on these first 24 moves of the game, and someone could win this game on time, especially if they're taking a long time on the moves. Look at how much time DJ Fira takes on these moves. 35 seconds to play H4. H4 isn't the worst move. It's kind of hard to make moves here because you have such few pieces left, but spending a lot of time on these moves. Gamma playing a little bit faster here, but taking 15 seconds on G5, challenging. We have knight does jump to the center here. Okay, but knight e7, challenging that knight. Will the knight move? Will the knight get a danger? Will the knight trade? The knight goes to c7. Okay, DJ Fira is now down to the same amount of time as Dark Gamma, but it's Dark Gamma's turn to move, attacking the knight. You can defend the knight here with b6 if you want to, but she instead blunders the knight. She doesn't know where to move it. She's low on time. She's down to 23 seconds. She spent over 40 seconds on this move. Black takes, check on e1. DJ Fira is spending too much time. 10.8 seconds on the clock. She takes, she's low on time. She doesn't know what to do. Takes the knight on e7. Black takes back with his king, and well, in this position, as you can see, DJ Fira unfortunately spends her remaining time on those last 3 or 4 moves and loses the game. And she was doing super well in the middle there, finding some cool tactical sequences with trading the queens in the center of the board and harassing Black's king, but is unable to play quickly enough. And this set and match does go to Dark Gamma, who is moving on to the next phase of the tournament. If you enjoyed these videos, consider subscribing. Another video with our past recap will appear on the screen if you haven't watched it. I guarantee you like it. If you want to watch this live, it's going right now on twitch.tv/Nick Drew. There's a link to everything down below. This event's going on for a couple more weeks. Check out our lives. Check out our lives on Twitch, TikTok, and hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.